What is the most essential skill that you think is required to succeed in your career?
I don't think there's one skill, Lakshmi, to be a lawyer. If it was a movie, it'd definitely be Erin Brockovich. Most misunderstood thing about being a lawyer is everyone thinks that just because you're a lawyer, you know everything about the law. It really doesn't matter. What matters is the grades, my vision of what I want my career to be, rather than just thinking, oh, this is never going to happen, just give up now. It's never give up is my advice.
How do you balance family?
I've always said I want to be a mum that's present.
What does a day look like for you?
My brain doesn't stop. Work is always there in the background.
Hello, and welcome to Unblur the Path. In every episode, I bring you guests from different professions so we can explore their journeys, their challenges, and the realities behind their careers we think we understand. If you have found something valuable or eye-opening in these conversations, I have a very small request. Please subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us reach more people. And the more this community grows, the easier it will become to bring incredible guests who are willing to share their stories with honesty and depth. So if you're enjoying the episodes, I humbly ask you to subscribe and share it with someone you think might benefit from it. Thank you, and let's dive into today's journey. Hi, Trupti. Welcome to Unblur the Path. How are you today?
Hi, Lakshmi. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you, and it would be thrilling to go through your journey with you, how you became the lawyer that you are.
It's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to our next hour or so that we're talking.
Lovely, lovely. Before we start diving deep into your journey, if I may ask you about your current role for the benefit of our listener?
Yep. So my current role, the title is I'm Group General Counsel for an insurance broking firm, and what I do is I'm responsible for anything and everything legal. So the whole of the legal function for all our group companies, a lot of it is UK based, US, Singapore, Jamaica. So getting involved in new jurisdictions, and my role involves looking after, contracts, corporate deals, investigations, employment law. So my remit is quite wide, and hence the General Counsel in my job title. So, and I work for a company rather than a law firm. So my role is very different from a traditional lawyer who works for a private practice law firm. So yeah, that's my title and that's what I do.
That's so amazing and intriguing at the same time. If I may ask, where were you raised? Were you raised in UK or were you raised in India, or a mix of both?
So I was born in Nairobi in Kenya.
Okay.
And then my dad retired quite early and moved to India, where, he built a house. I went to school in India for about 4 years, I believe, 4 to 5 years. At a very young age. And then at the age of 11, I came to the UK and then have had most of my senior school, university, everything in England.
Wonderful, wonderful. So let me take you back to the days when you were studying in school and you were thinking of making a career choice. What was that one trigger, probably one trigger, or a series of thoughts, or what were your thought process during the time, which made you think that I have to be a lawyer? This is a career I should pursue.
Well, it started, I think, a lot younger than school, because it started off as my dad saying, I've got 2 siblings, a brother and a sister. And I remember my dad saying, my brother's going to be an engineer, my sister's going to be a doctor, and I'm going to be a lawyer. That was his wish, his dream. And at the beginning, when he said that, I didn't know, what's a lawyer? What am I going to be? And I was very much a child that if daddy said do this, it was always like, yeah, that's what I've got to do. And Dad explained what a lawyer was, and he said, yeah, you'll be really good at it because you really argue when I'm arguing with my parents about, I could put a good case forward. So, and that kind of made me aware of what a lawyer was. in the future. And then I thought, okay, I'll be a lawyer. And then I watching movies and you see all the dramas and you see what a lawyer does. So it's like, yeah, I could do that. So at high school, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. That's where the pathway, I chose my GCSEs, did my A levels to go to the pathway of. So it was, I never thought I'd be anything else. And from a very young age, since dad planted the seed, I was like, yeah, that's what I want to be. And I think I'll be really good at it. So I chose my A levels and then did a law degree after that and then went to law school. So that is the educational part of it. But then law is very competitive. It's very hard to get into.
Okay.
It's even, 20 or more than 20 years ago when I was getting into the legal field. Unless you knew the right people who your parents would put you in touch with the law firms who were their friends and, you had to get training in order to qualify. You can do all your studying, that's fine. In order to qualify, you had to get a training contract in a law firm, and that is 2 years of training. And you have to apply for that at university 2 years in advance for, so right now, if I was to apply for a training contract, I'd be applying for like 2028 intake. So 2 years in advance, you have to apply for training contracts. And at the time, it was very competitive. If you wanted to go into the big city law firms, you had to have really good qualification. But also, even with all of that, it was who you know that were getting training contracts. So by the time I finished law school, I didn't have a training contract. So what I did was kept applying to lots and lots of law firms to get training, got lots of rejections. And then I thought, okay, let me just start working as a paralegal. So paralegals are not lawyers, but they go, do all the admin work that a lawyer would do. So you learn a lot from it in terms of how a law firm operates, what it involves. And when I started working as a paralegal, I was working for a big city law firm. And it was in the insurance department, and it was a really big case. It was about, it was £300 million case, one big case. Really, really got into and understood how big insurance is. It's not just like your normal insurance policy that you buy. It was more, oh, this is big, and I can use my legal studying and knowledge to understand this. So let me see what happens in insurance. And that's how I fell into becoming an insurance lawyer.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's wonderful to know how organically you moved. Of course, there were help, there were inputs from here and there, but organically you moved into the choice of career that you
Yeah.
eventually made. I'll take you a few steps back
Yeah.
and I'll take you to again your school days. When you decided, it was quite clear, the seed was implanted, you wanted to be a lawyer, you were very sure of that. And that sometimes helps, a belief system, your
Yeah.
father's belief system in you and your capabilities. And then you also started believing that. That became your voice in your head that, yes, I can be a lawyer because I'm good at so and so thing. I'm good
Yeah.
at putting my arguments forth. So that's a very critical part of parenting also and a belief system also. What I want to ask you is, when you were deciding on the subjects during your senior school, which are the subjects that plays an important part in the whole process, which
Yeah.
helps you?
It really doesn't matter I think from a GCSE, if you're thinking about GCSEs, I think what matters is the grades. It doesn't matter when you're applying for a law degree or qualification, what subjects you took. It's how many A's you've got. Have you got 9 A's? They don't, like for a GCSE perspective, it really doesn't matter. And my advice to anyone, looking to go into the law is go for what you're good at. Go pick the subjects that you really, even if it's science, if it's maths, and you think you're not going to go into the medical field and you're good at it, just go for what you're good at and pick those rather than, because again, being a lawyer, you do a lot of drafting, and history and English is very important because those essay subjects do help. But again, as a lawyer, I'm constantly doing maths, and science doesn't, come in much, but just the way you think of different subjects can help you in your skills in the future. So for GCSEs, I would say it really doesn't matter what subjects. for what you're good at, do what you're best at, and think of it that way. A levels, if you're going to be a doctor, you need those science subjects. To do a law degree. You could do science subjects and still do a law degree as well.
Okay. Okay.
You don't need, but again, if you think you want to be a commercial corporate lawyer, you might want to do like business and business studies and history. And I think they do law A levels as well. So, but in order to do a law degree, you don't need to do a law A level. Again, it's about how many A levels you get and what the grades are. The subjects really don't matter.
Okay, that's a very, very interesting aspect that I wouldn't have assumed would be the case, but it's such an important thing to know.
Yeah.
In order to get into a law school, you just have to work on whatever skills that you have and be there.
Yeah.
That's
And the option is also there if you say you've done a degree in history and not done a law degree. If you've done it, I've got many friends who've done sciences and history or geography as a degree and then decided, actually, I want to go into the law.
Okay.
So in England, you can do like a 1-year qualification, which adds to your degree to give you that law degree. So after you've done a history degree, you can, do a 1-year course, which I think it's called the GDL, might be something different at the moment. You can do like a conversion into law, and that takes 1 year. So even if by the time you've done your degree and think, oh, I do want to go into the law, the options, they're there. If you decided, Lakshmi, you want to do law, it's possible.
I could do that.
Yes.
That's another career I could look into.
Exactly.
And that's amazing. It's a very informative point that you just made about the subjects that you have to take. Once you have set your eyes on a university or a college that you want to do your law on, what does the preparation look like? Is there any kind of exams that you give, or is there any kind of preparation?
So when you're applying for university, you're obviously relying on your predicted grades of A levels. So when you're applying if you want to go into really good law universities, so for example, Durham or King's College, they have a really good law faculties. And again, it's very competitive. And what you need to do is also stand out in your application form. Studying, you can have the best grades, but to be a fully, well-rounded lawyer for universities, as well as when you apply for training contracts and law firms and whatever jobs, what else do you do? What are your skills? What have you done? Are you part of the debating society? And I think that those do stand out when universities are picking students to go to, especially these, really prestigious universities.
Okay.
So what's additional skills have you got? What can you bring to the university? That is quite important when universities are looking at application forms. So I would say extracurricular activities definitely make a difference. Outside interest, if you're in music, into music or playing an instrument, I would say to all the students, my 11-year-old, just carry on playing an instrument, doing those extracurricular activities, because they make a difference. And I think not just in law, I think they make a difference in any career where you've got interest outside of work. Right. So that really helps in applications for law firms, for universities and everything. Yeah.
So you made a very important point about extracurricular activities, and you briefly touched upon debating club, which in my head, as a really layman to the law world, I would think that's very important. Are there any such specific extracurricular activities that will have a higher impact in the application than probably music?
I don't think
thinking loud.
It wouldn't, if you're a music, if you've got, you play an instrument or you've been part of a debating society, I really don't think that it would. But again, it just shows that for the career that you're going for a lawyer, you are arguing a case all the time, putting forward your client's case. So you might have better debate those skills. But again, just because you do music should not prevent a university or anyone from applying or getting that degree. So I really don't think there is a specific extracurricular activity that you need to do in order to get into the good universities. I think they look for something that's different to show, that you are your own person and excelling in those skills, I
Right.
think make a big difference.
That's a great point. That's a great point. So once you are in the process of applications, you've applied to various universities, added your credentials.
Yeah.
What's the next step? How does it work? Can you get into the details of that?
So in my days when I did this, it was you made the application, the universities give you a provisional offer. So they will say, yes, you can come and join us if you get AAB, which is our requirement, or, depending on the universities. So that leads you to, work in your mock exams and also your exams to aim for those grades. If you don't get those grades, so once after the exam, results day comes out and you don't get those days, then it's likely that the university that made you that offer will not take you on
Okay.
because you didn't get the grades.
Right.
But the amazing thing about the university process at that time is on those days, universities are, they've got a whole load of students who've got in, they've got a whole load of students who didn't get those grades. So it's called clearing day. So you can call a university that wasn't on your list to say, these are the grades I've got. This is the law degree, that I want to do. Will you take me? And that university's criteria might be lower than going to King's or Oxford or Durham or whatever it is. So that's what happened to me in terms of my A levels. So I had really good GCSEs, A levels. I wanted to go to Brunel University in Uxbridge. I didn't get the grades that I required. So I had to go to clearing day and, call around universities. And then University of Hertfordshire is where I did my law degree. I did a business and a law degree. So I got the degree that I wanted to through that clearing process. Just because I didn't get my first, I didn't get to go to the university that I wanted to, I still got into a university and did a degree, which, gave me a law degree.
Right. That's such an important aspect which many people don't speak about, that when you apply to various universities, there's always a chance that you may or may not get your first choice of university.
Exactly.
Yeah. And this is something every student or every individual has to learn to deal with.
Yes.
So, very logically, my next question is, how do you deal with it?
I think you don't let yourself get bogged down on, oh my God, I'm a failure, because you just can't move on from that. I think, for me, it was okay, I didn't get into that one. That's disappointing. You beat yourself up about it. But also, you've got to get into the mode of what can I do to get myself to what I want, my vision of what I want my career to be,
Right.
rather than just thinking, oh, this is never going to happen to you. I just give up now. It's never give up is my advice.
Right.
You will in life, always want things or you try for things, but life is not easy in my experience. I've had to really work hard to get to where I have been. There have been disappointments, but also thinking I'm not a failure. I can do this. Even if there will be like people in your life that tell you can't do this, but you've got to, get the courage and get over the fear of I can do this. And I think that mentality can really help you in those situations. The positive thinking.
So true, so true. Because many times in life, we do see such kind of disappointments, what we wanted versus what we get.
Yeah.
And what we get is not the second best. It is it is what we make out of it.
Exactly.
So I completely believe on this way of thinking. And clearly, you might not have done this alone. Who were your support system when this kind of event happened in your life the first time, probably?
Yeah.
And let's talk about this particular event.
So during, at my A levels, mum and dad were not disappointed. They weren't sad. So that was good. They had the support. They was like, just do what you feel you need to do. And I was, 16, 17 coming up to 18, joining university. And I had a boyfriend, which is my now husband, Mr. Chris Michael. He was my support in helping me through that as well.
Oh, wow.
So,
well done.
that was a big support and friends. But other than that, it was all about just me doing it, and rather than someone doing it for me.
No, absolutely. Bang on that point. Moving on, once you've gotten into your university,
Yeah.
how did your first few days look like or first few months look like, if we can speak about that?
Having lots of fun, partying.
I would assume that.
Just, that's when you become an adult and you're at university, you are independent. So having a lot of fun, but also for me, the law has always been gives me goosebumps just when you think of what the law is, the justice system, just the way the law works. And I remember going to my first law lesson, it was like, oh my God, these are all going to be lawyers. I always saw lawyers as like, I see them on a pedestal. At the time, it was like, lawyers is what I want to be. I want to be that person. And I'm surrounded by these amazing people who are going to be amazing lawyers. And it was also very scary because these are going to be your competitors that you're going to be competing against in getting jobs and everything. Doing it at university. It was fun, but it was a lot of hard work. You do various subjects. You can pick it again. I think when you're doing your law degree is when it's critical to pick what area of law you want to go into, because this is when you pick the subjects. And if you want to be a criminal lawyer, you'll do a criminal module. If you want to, you do the basic modules at the basic modules that you need for a law degree, but you also have additional options that you want to do. So, like, if you wanted to be a corporate lawyer, then you can have an option of corporate module or employment or human rights. And that really helps in terms of determining these additional electives, they're called, that you take would help you with your future career.
Okay. And when do you make these choices? I'm assuming, and correct my understanding, the first few months or
First few days of starting your law degree, because they say these are the timetable that you have to do. These are the options that you have. So you pick those options because they'll say, well, this the times where the options take place. So you need to pick 3 options because they'll be on different days. So in the first few days of starting your law degree, you would pick those options for that year.
Okay.
And then for the
that
second
year.
year, yeah.
And for how long do you do the law studies? Is it
3-year degree, and after you do your law degree, it's changed now because there's the thing called the SQE, the Solicitor's Qualification Exam now. So in my days, we had to do the law degree and then the legal practice course if you wanted to be a solicitor. If you wanted to be a barrister, which is a different type of lawyer, barristers are obviously the ones that argue the case in court. I'm a solicitor, so I, sit behind the barrister in terms I do all the grunt work and the barrister goes and presents the case. If I was, in that traditional law firm barrister situation. So you decide whether you want to go into doing the bar vocational course or the legal practice course. So I always wanted to be a solicitor, and that was a moment so I'll go back a bit because when you're doing your A levels, it's really important to also, one of the skills is getting work experience. Even when at school, you would go for a week or 2 of work experience to experience what it's like to go into that field. So during my summer holidays before starting my A level, well, I think it was during my A levels, I did some work experience at a law firm on the high street in Acton. It was a criminal law firm. Because by that time, I always thought actually criminal law is what I wanted to go into. That's what lawyers do. I did some work experience in a criminal law firm. I liked it, but also I realized that one of the cases I was involved with involved children, and it was quite graphic. I was like, that's not me. I can't go home every day with these type of cases because I'm quite an empathetic person. I kind of swallow everyone's emotions, and that made me realize I didn't want to go into criminal law ever. And that was at a very young age. So even when I did my law degree, and my vision was always I'm going to be a corporate company lawyer. Company law is I'm better dealing with a company client than an individual personal client.
Right. No. And yeah, this is an important aspect of getting an experience. And which is why also the idea of this podcast came into my mind, because getting an experience is such an important thing.
Yeah.
Knowing the story or knowing the actual career path is actually so important to make your decisions right, because multiple times, and I am one of those, where I have chosen a career and I have thought after spending 20 years that let me try something else. Yeah. So it's so important to get that experience. And had you made your first step into criminal lawyer, probably you would have shifted after a few years. And
Yes.
you got an early
Yeah.
experience at it and you made the
I would have
decision.
changed my mind.
Yeah.
Again, being a lawyer, like criminal law is great because you've got the passion for it, and I've have some very good criminal lawyers as friends. But again, you've got to think about in your career, do you want to be paid or not? Being a criminal lawyer doesn't pay much as being a
Okay.
corporate lawyer. And again, this is I would advise all your listeners who are listening to this and considering a career in law is to really go out there if you're really interested in becoming a lawyer and seeing what area of law do you want to go into. Why? You might be, an environmentalist and want to go into environmental law. Have you looked at, when you qualify, what is it? Do you go into a big city law firm? Do you go into, an environmentalist group to help them on their legal side?
Right.
And again, as a career, everyone wants to know ultimately how much you're going to get paid.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So with the law, it very much depends on the size of the law firms you go into, what areas of law you go into, and how quickly you progress in your career as well.
Thank you for sharing that, Trupti. It was really insightful. I'll take you back again to your college times. And if you can explain me the 3 years that you did the law college. Firstly, you started with saying that you choose certain subjects of your interest in the beginning of year one. And you hinted that you have to do the same in the subsequent years as well. So, how do you go about it? How do you make the decisions? What influences you? Of course, your own passion and own vision of how you want to see yourself, definitely. But what are other influences around you?
As I said earlier, you do the basic subjects like land law, European law, civil law, and I think criminal law as the basic subjects that you do. But then and that's mainly in the first and second year, you do the core subjects that they tell you have to do in order for you to get the law degree. But then you have other options. So you could do a law degree that is split with business. That's what I did. So I did a business degree as well as a law degree. But then I did enough law modules to give me a law degree, but also having the business element of running a company, business studies, basically. That's what I did. Because by that time, I always knew I wanted to go into the commercial aspect of law rather than the criminal aspect. So my options that I chose were mainly commercial law. I think I did employment law, corporate law that you can pick as well. When you're doing a law degree, it's mainly getting all the core subjects in. What really makes a difference is when you do the legal practice course, which is law school. It's when you really pick, you have a wide choice of subjects that you can pick. So you can go into human rights or employment law or mergers and acquisitions or IT law. You can pick that as a subject because law degree is very much this is how the law works. These are the cases that you need to know for those particular subjects. So when you do the legal practice course, it's very different from doing a law degree. It is very practical. So it tells you this is the case, this is the law, how would you apply it in your exams? Whereas when you do a law degree, it is like, well, this is the law, basically. That's what not the practice side. So degrees is very much, you do your A levels, you study, but a degree is so much more than GCSEs and A levels because does require a lot of hard work, revision. University was spending a lot of time in the library because law is about research. You do need to do a lot of research when you're in particular areas of law. So that's when you do your law degree is when you really refine your legal research skills. So finding the right law from 1,000 books that you have and the case that you need to find. So law degree is remembering a lot of cases, a lot of legislation, and really getting into that, like that part of starting your law studies is very studying, and remembering.
So you need to have a lot of memorization skills.
Yes.
And you also need to have a lot of research skills, is what I'm getting from here.
Absolutely. Legal research is a huge part of what a lawyer does. As you get in your career, you get your junior people to do the legal research. So, but it's time consuming. It takes up a lot of time.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier now with having a lot of electronic platforms that you could just punch in and find the case that you need. In my days, you had to go to a library, make sure the book was there, and go through and find the right legislation. So information wasn't as easily accessible as it is now.
So there was a lot of hard work involved.
A lot of hard work.
And
And
focus.
now it's at a touch of a keyboard. Every law students have access to a lot of information.
Important point that you've made, that the research skills and the memorization skills, these are very, very important part of your whole curriculum.
Yeah.
So it seems like hard work when you're studying law.
Yeah.
And it feels like a lot of mental resilience is required to keep yourself on the top of things
Yeah.
while you're studying. Did you at any point yourself feel that it's getting too tough for me? Or did you see anyone else really in that zone at certain points?
There were a lot of people dropped out or changed from starting doing a law degree and then changing the field that they want to go to. There were a few people who did that. There are a few people who go through doing a law degree and then not following the solicitor or the barrister path. But for me, I didn't feel like, oh, this is getting too much. It was, again, it's about all the skills that I talk about: preparation, planning, when you're revising, putting in, and nowadays there's so many skills that, if you're trying to learn a case, this is the way to do it, your memory skills, and there's so much more out there to help you. Whereas my one was basically just rote like learning. You just learn it and that was it. So I didn't have the tools that are given to children nowadays on how to memorize, how to learn.
Yeah.
So it was just do it, and never felt like, oh, this is too hard and I'm not going to do it. Yeah, it's just, for me, it's like until someone tells you you failed and you realize you failed, then you failed. Don't give up. Don't give up.
Don't give up at all, at all. So, in your college life, were there any extracurricular activities that you were involved in which were either in line to what you were doing, or what you're aspiring to be, or just for fun? Were there any?
At university doing the law degree, I didn't go into any groups, but there are lots of, groups available, extra clubs, etc. available. I was having too much fun.
Why not?
So they had the debating society, they had the student union. If you were from an Indian background, there was groups there. There were groups where a lot of, also university, you get a lot of overseas students. So they work a lot of groups of people coming from the same area. But for me, I was surrounded by my law school friends, and I got the interaction that I needed from that, rather than sitting in a debating club like I said, I was having too much fun.
And that's absolutely part and parcel
Yeah,
of it.
if I could go back, to that time now with my mindset now, I would be doing all extracurricular activities and really redo the whole university experience and maybe not have too much fun. Yeah, it's a balance, really, I
It's a
would say.
balance, really.
Keep it
Yeah.
as a balance. Don't overdo the fun side.
Yeah. So moving on, in your last years of law college, how did you prep to get your first job? How does it work to get it? What is the process?
So when you're doing a law degree, which is a 3-year degree, by the last year, you need to start applying for training contracts that I mentioned. And you still have a years of, after the law degree, you still have to do your legal practice course, your LPC, or the bar vocational course, which is if you want to be a barrister. But in order to qualify as a lawyer, you need to do the experience, which is approved by the Law Society, etc. So that 2-year training contract, you need to apply in your last year of degree or even earlier nowadays. So whilst you're studying and revising and doing all of that, you also need to get application forms ready and start filling those out. And each law firms, the bigger law firms it'll be a 20-page form that you need to fill in and really show that you are the right suitable person for them to pick you. And that's where it's very competitive. So law firms, and a yearly intake for trainees would have, depending on the size of the law firms, some have like 150 candidates, more like smaller law firms will have two or three.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is where you need to be in the mind frame of where do I want to go? What is it that I want to do? What area I'd want to focus on? That you get the really big American law firms where your starting salary is like ridiculous, but the hours you put in, your education, your qualifications all matter. So, it really does make a difference. I think trying to get a lot of work experience during your summer holidays. So that is after your GCSEs, that is after your A levels, during your A levels, during your degree. Kids have 6, 8 weeks of summer holidays. Utilizing those is really important in order to stand out on your applications. A lot of law firms do now is they offer summer placements, vacation schemes, and I would advise anyone who's doing GCSEs or A levels to really get in there for those summer vacation schemes. So
Mm-hmm.
start applying quite young. That wasn't the option when I was doing my law degree and stuff, but that is the option that gives that upper edge to candidates when they're applying for training contracts and when they're being picked.
Yeah, that's quite important information that you've shared, that getting your work ex way early is one of the contributing factors to land those contracts. Yeah. And you said it's a 2-year contract, and if you start applying 1 year in advance,
You still have to do the legal practice course, so it's applying 2 years before you're going to start that training contract.
and how soon do you respond to these applications? How much time does it take?
So in order to stand out, it takes a lot of time to think, how am I going to make myself, different from all the other of my friends that are, I sit in the lecture hall with?
Yeah.
What is different about me? And also really showing your passion about the law. Each law firm's application form is different. They're
Mhm.
not all the same. They ask different, questions. Again, in these applications, they ask you, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? It is basically, going for an interview, but putting it in an application form. Or give me a situation where you have worked in a team, even for a 18-year-old. These law firms, again, these application forms have been gone through a big process of making sure that they're picking the right candidates and how they go about doing things. And law firms invest a lot of time in making sure that they are also, not in my days, but now they have to be fair and, make sure there's enough applicants who are from a social background and they're not just picking like the Oxford and Cambridge students. Is a wide so law firms are giving everyone the opportunity to be able to apply,
Okay.
but the application forms, you really need to stand out. And that is work experience, that is doing, extracurricular activities, could be volunteering, could be part of a hockey club, but it doesn't need to be relevant to law.
Right.
It could be that I do a podcast.
Mhm.
That's my extra bit, that my hobby is to do this. So that is really important to stand out in applications as well, doing stuff that normal person isn't doing. I didn't get through to that training contract
Mhm.
stage because
Okay.
I didn't stand out,
Okay.
but that didn't stop me from being a lawyer
Of
later
course.
on.
And
Yeah.
we'll definitely talk about how did you meander your path after, you didn't get selected, and
Yeah.
what did you do next? What was your way of, getting your first experience or the contract of working with a law
So
firm?
that was doing paralegal work. So my first role as a paralegal in this big, massive legal case that I was, working on was files and files of documents and paginating them. So putting page numbers on them and then doing an index of that file. is a very basic job that anyone could do it.
Right.
But what I learned was I wasn't just paginating, I wasn't just putting page numbers on and indexing the documents. As part of that, I was reading the documents and seeing how does this affect the case. And because paralegals work for other solicitors and solicitors in the team supervise the paralegals, so I was, asking the bold questions about, oh, how is this document relevant to the case, and trying
Mhm.
to understand the purpose of that document and the purpose of the other 1,000 documents that are not, why are they not relevant? And you had to, put them in piles of relevancy and not relevant in order for this case to be argued.
Mhm.
So I really learned a lot of skills that a lawyer would do whilst doing a paralegal job,
Right.
and understanding by working under a solicitor is what a solicitor does. Also, how did this Lisa, who was my boss, how is Lisa doing this, and how is she thinking about this case? And that really, really made it clear that I wanted to be, even though at the time it could have been, may not have been able to be a lawyer. It drove me to, yes, I like the law and I like insurance law it's great. And by getting that experience, that's when I discovered how big the London insurance market is. It
Mm.
is huge. Absolutely huge. And insurance deals with a lot of claims, which is a lot of litigation. And again, it needs lawyers. My discovery of the big world of insurance came when I was doing my paralegal work. And at that point, I thought, okay, maybe I won't be a lawyer, but I can still use my legal skills in
Mhm.
order to still do law. At that time, I thought, okay, let me see what jobs are out there that I could utilize. I can go and work in a legal department of a company and see what I can do. And at that time, I joined a very small insurance broker. It was a South African broker in London,
Mhm.
and started working on claims,
Okay.
which is professional indemnity claims. So as insurance brokers are regulated, they're professionals, and if they get things wrong, they get sued. So I was, handling all of these claims. And again, with the insurance brokers, if you're getting claims against you, you buy an insurance policy to protect you. So
Okay.
I was reporting to the insurers in getting those claims paid for the company,
Mhm.
and again discovered a whole new part of the law, the legal world that I wasn't aware of. And I just absolutely loved that job. The claims part, it was different types of claims. So an insurance broker places policies for planes, and we place policies for vessels like shipping vessels,
Okay.
or professionals like solicitors, they buy insurance policies.
Right.
So if the insurance broker gets something wrong, they get sued. Claims relating to aviation, to shipping, to marine, to solicitors, accountants. So that's where I thought, actually, this is amazing because I'm dealing with so many different areas of law that are coming in. I'm learning so much about this without, and then I took the bold decision to say to my boss, look, I'm doing the work of a solicitor anyway. Why don't you give me a training contract? So I created that path for myself because in me, I still, even though I thought I would never be a solicitor, I still wanted to be. The drive never went away. And I asked, and they said, yeah, that's a great idea. So during the training contract, I not only dealt with the claims, I did commercial contracts, did corporate law, did employment. Again, everything that I do in my current role, that's what I started doing, learning, and applied to the Law Society for a training to get approved for the training contract. And I got my qualification.
Okay.
And that was once I got my practicing certificate was like the proudest moment of my life,
Wow.
because after the journey that I'd been through, it was like, you've done it, you've done it.
Such a big
It
reward.
was a bit later on than I'd hoped it, over 2 or 3 years later than I'd hoped it would be. But and I was like, Dad, I'm a solicitor. And that for me, that was the proudest moment for myself as much it was for him.
And he wanted it. He planted that seed.
He planted, and look, I think for me that was becoming teary and emotional. That's what it was. And I would say to any student listening to this is, if you feel like, you haven't got where you wanted to and you have the drive, keep going, keep going.
Yeah.
It will happen. And
Yes.
find your own path, even though it says this is the path you should be taking. See if there's other opportunities available and create your own path in getting whatever objective it is that you want to get to.
So brilliant. It's such a brilliant thing. And it's such a brilliant story, Trupti. And my major takeaway from this is don't hesitate to ask.
No, yeah.
You asked for it, you worked hard, and you thought you are capable enough to get it. You went and asked it. Sometimes your bosses, your seniors don't see it or probably are not vocal at the right time.
No, they never thought, oh, we could have a trainee and get our own, in 2 years' time, we get our own solicitor within the team. They'd never thought about it. And it's planting that seed, that really asking. And again, where I asked, I always go into the my frame because I think you need to always prepare yourself for the person saying no and trying to understand if they say no, how am I going to feel about it? Because you don't just go with the expectation that they're going to say yes, because then that just leads to a lot of disappointment. So every time I've gone into a difficult situation or the ask is, can I do this? Yes, you want a yes all the time, but also prepare yourself for the no. If you get the no, what are you going to do? Don't be disappointed and accept that that's the way it is and try something else. And just don't let the no stop you.
And that gives you the power to take the plunge. So
Exactly. So my boss said yes. And then, yeah, I qualified and I've been in a solicitor for over 20 years now.
wow. It's such a beautiful journey till you got your first license to practice.
Exactly.
Yeah. So once you were confirmed at this organization and you were liking what you were doing, it was just a continuation of where you were. This may be a very big milestone, but did anything change right after?
Well, you qualify as a solicitor, you get the pay goes up significantly. So that was a big thing. And with solicitors, the more qualified you are, because every year you're more. I'm 20 years post qualification. It's called PQE. So I have 20 years post qualification experience. So the more qualified you are, the pay bands go up significantly, depending on how many years qualified you are. So that's the way in the law firms, the bigger city law firms, that's the way it works. So obviously I was working not in a law firm, but in a company. So trying to really work. For me, it was just trying to do different things, learning different. If any new project came in, I would be the first one to say, I want to do it, not being scared of taking that opportunity and growing. So the biggest qualification was you're a solicitor, you can have a business card with your name on it, you're on the practicing role, you get a better paycheck, pay rise in terms of what you do. And then it is all about continuing your learning and your development in order to progress in that field. As a solicitor, you need to do a certain amount of continuous professional development as CPD points. So you have to continuously better yourself and learn and grow. And you can do that in the area of law you want to go into. So obviously I was in the insurance field, but doing a generalist legal work. In that time, the legal department was getting all sorts of queries similar to what I do and getting involved and also building relationships with your peers. So because I work for a company, I can't do, lawyers in-house can't do everything. You have to go external. So you have to instruct law firms to do the work for you. I am the law firm's client, basically, but who's also a lawyer. And I learned so much from the law firms when they were advising the company on various aspects. And I also built really good friendships and relationships and networking with the law firms, with the partners of the law firms. And I think that is really important. And I, in my young age, never did any networking. And I think anyone looking to go into the legal field, go and network. Law firms do a lot of events, seminars, they have drinks, dinners. If you can get yourselves in them, go and network, speak to people, because I didn't do it. And I think, the young generation are bit fearful of going and speaking to people.
Mhm.
So I always say to my daughter, what you need to be able to just go and speak to a person. If you're in a queue, ask a
Yeah.
question to the person standing next to you because they're so fearful.
Yeah.
So I think, those networking skills are really important. Don't be scared to just speak to someone, ask what their interests are, start
Right.
a conversation because that really helps you in any field, not just law, of communicating. Being a lawyer, it's really important to be able to communicate clearly, getting the right advice across, being succinct on what you say and do. I've always said to my daughter, the skills that you learn at school at the moment, the assertiveness, the soft skills that any human being needs
Yeah.
are so important in your later on in your life. And if you can start, because in my career, I've worked on those skills like negotiation skills, presentation skills, doing presentations,
Yeah.
speaking in front of people, that I've learned very much later on in my life than I should have done. So, and I would say to any student, refine those skills,
Yeah.
keep doing presentations, try and negotiate because negotiation is a very important skill for a lawyer or anyone really.
Yeah.
And the assertiveness, try and speak up and use your voice, put forward your argument.
Yeah.
And again, the kids are learning on how to do that on everything. Back up your argument. Just really refine those skills in order to then be a good lawyer or whatever profession you want to go into.
I so agree with whatever you have just said. Yes, today's generation is getting a lot of opportunities or a lot of exposure to the skills that we
Yeah.
learned on the job. If we probably observed other people doing better than us because they possess certain skills that we didn't, and then we work towards it.
Yes.
So, yes, it's a very good advice to hone your negotiation skills or the presentation skills because it helps. It helps just not lawyers, but I think many
And
professions.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. So, Trupti, in your initial years of working, while you put a lot of hard work, lot of focus into your work, how does your work-life balance look like at that time?
At that time, it was just working, working, working. When I was qualifying and working as a trainee, and when I qualified, I had my own flat, so I had to pay for that. And I was saving, and I did go out. I didn't have as much fun then as much as I did in university.
Mhm.
So it was a lot more sensible. It was spending as much time that I needed to at work in order to get the tasks done was very much if work needed to be done, I was at work. And then I'd come home and have fun on the weekends, go out and spend time with family. If you're working in a city law firm, if the work is there, you need to do it.
Mm.
If it's late nights, corporate lawyers work till like 3, 4 in the morning every night.
Yeah.
If you're in a private practice firm, because the deal needs to get done and, lawyers need to do what you need to do. For me, it was at the time, I didn't have any other family commitments. Even though I had a boyfriend, I was living by myself and trying to support myself.
Right.
So it was concentrating on the work and less on the fun and enjoying yourself. So, and that was quite good because I really, had the opportunity to get my head down into work, really learn what the job was and progress as
Mhm.
well. Because you can do a job, but for me, it was moving up and learning and growing in my role. So after I qualified, I'd been in the same firm for nearly 18, 19 years.
Wow.
So, and I wasn't just doing the same job that I started off. I grew. By the time I left, I was head of litigation and in a massive company because the company grew along with me as well. Yeah, it's just learning, and current work-life balance is tricky as you grow and you develop in your career, and the more senior you are, that point in your life, you've got kids and family to support, and so it's always trying to balance.
Yes. Yes.
It's
So
juggling act for sure.
a juggling act and
But
prioritizing.
in the initial stages of someone's career as a lawyer, I would say just keep your head down, just work through and learn as much as you can.
And if I may touch upon the topic of salary, which you said increases after you get your license, was it good enough to sustain you? I mean, don't need the numbers for sure,
Yeah.
but
At
is
the
it good
time,
enough to sustain?
I was paying for rent for a flat for myself. I was able to have a bit more, and it was, sustainable at the
Mhm.
time for
Mhm.
sure. And I had help from mum and dad as well. So when I needed to.
Yeah, of course. But it's good to know that it's a sustainable salary even in the initial years,
Yeah.
which is very, very promising. Talk me through your growth path from then, the current time that we're talking about,
Yeah.
to the time you left the first organization.
So it was always every time I had an appraisal, with any job, you have your annual appraisals. It was always trying to, that's when I learned in order to get that progression, that pay review every year, the bonus, the next step, your promotion, you really have to, show your employer what is it that you're doing and why you stand out, why you deserve that pay review or, that promotion.
Right.
And throughout the year, continuously thinking about what is it that I need to do in order to achieve that promotion? What is it I need to show? So it was also working, but also going out there and outside your comfort zone and asking someone, can I help you with this? Or I haven't worked on this before.
Mhm.
Is it okay if I work with you? And also getting the support of your seniors
Mhm.
in supporting and mentoring you. I think that's really important to get on well with your colleagues and your supervisors and for them to be able to recognize you is definitely really important in getting that, step
Yeah.
up.
So, what was the most challenging part of your career, say the first 18 years that we were talking about?
There were times where you'd have expectations, oh, I did really well, but I
Mhm.
didn't get the pay rise or the promotion that I wanted. And in my last job where I was everyone appreciated me. I felt like I was valued, but again, I'd hit the glass ceiling because there was already a general counsel. For me, the next step, my ultimate vision was to always be a group general counsel of a company. So where I think I had the most, difficulty or was during my last few years of my last employment, where I felt done this for 20 years. I want to do something new. I want a new challenge. And for me, that challenge was when I joined my current firm was to go for a much wider role, a
Right.
senior role, and also challenge myself because I had never done that group general counsel. Whilst I'd worked with a group general counsel, I hadn't done that job. So that has been, so the last 18 months where I've been in this role has been probably the most challenging of my life. I'm doing new things. I'm learning new things. I have new responsibilities and have taken a step up from what I was doing a few years back. So whilst the challenge is there, it's very exciting. It's not a bad challenge. It's a good challenge because I'm learning so many new things and working with the senior leadership team, having that comfort that they rely on me, they're coming to me for advice. And again, I've very much learned that you can be a lawyer, you can be a lawyer in private practice who can sit there giving like 20-page advice and then telling you you could do A, B, and C, or saying you can't do this. Whereas I advise a company, and for me, my role is to be an enabler to get the company to where they need to be,
Right.
obviously from a legally compliant perspective, obviously not breaking the law in
Mhm.
any, but being an enabler, the people come to me for my team, my company come to me for advice and recognize that
Yeah.
they can rely on the advice that I give them. If I say, Mr.
Mm.
Blogs, you could just that is not something we should be doing. They agree that,
Okay.
and again, it's very much explaining the why. Why can't they do it? Why can they do it? Is really important. And in my role, my seniors don't want a 10-page legal opinion. They
Right.
just want to know, Trupti, what's the main bits? And I think my skills now are digesting information into a whole legal opinion into a small summary that the business can read and understand. So that's what I do at the moment. It's like you pick up as you go along. It's, as a student, what you know is nothing what after, later on in your career. But again, I think students need to think about what is the skills that they think that they will need that they can build on and grow with.
Sure. Sure. What I'm thinking at this point is, as a young person in the legal job,
Mm.
your focus was to learn, put your head down, learn everything that's going around you, learn the profession well. 20 years now, or 20 plus years now into the job, what does a day look like for you?
My brain doesn't stop. Work is always there in the background. So my typical day I work, I'm hybrid working. I go into the office, or there are days I work from home. So if I go into the office, I like to go in very early. So I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I am out of the door by 6 o'clock. I'm in the office by 7 o'clock. you know, I turn on the lights in the floor that I walk in because no one's there. And the reason I do that, not because I'm crazy, but because I find I get into the office, I can do like 2 hours worth of work in peace and quiet before the day starts at, 8:30, 9 o'clock, because it's back to back meetings and calls. But again, out of these meetings and calls, there's always further work to do. I go to a meeting, they'll say, can you review this contract? And then I've got to spend my own time reviewing a contract, or any lawyer would. Reading a contract can take, for a normal person, they can read a contract, but to try and understand and advise the company on a single confidentiality agreement, for example, can take a bit of time to review and then advise the company and go back. So as my normal day, I spent a lot of time in calls and meetings, but a lot of work comes out of those calls and meetings. So that means, early mornings before anyone can distract you, and evenings as well, where you can spend that time without any distractions and interruptions. So in the office, it's constant meetings and meetings and meetings, and just different projects, different areas that I get involved in. And a lot of the advice that I give is verbal, over the call, phones, and in person. But you need to put a lot in writing as well, because there are times where you have to cover your back, because in my company, you get people, Trupti, can I do this? And then, when they tell you certain things, you're like, yeah. But then, if you don't follow that up in writing with a caveat that, my advice is based on you saying X, Y, and Z. So if they go and do W or something, it's on there, it's on them. So it's very much a lot of typical day would be a lot of calls, and then following up and spending time doing the work as well.
Okay. And of course, I know that you have a husband and 2 daughters. How do you balance family with all the amazing work that you're doing?
So what I've always, ever since I had kids, I've always said I want to be able to be a mum that's present as well.
Yeah.
So from when I'm in the office, I do leave at a decent time to get home to my girls, to spend that 2 or 3 hours that I'm home and they're at home. If I'm in the office, I get home about 5:30, and then that's the time I have with them. And there are times I might have to do a call, but it's usually a time where they're doing homework. But the important thing is being present when you're with your kids. It's like putting the phones away, and they have to put their devices away. Cook dinner. We always have a family dinner together. We sit around the table. We talk about our day. We talk about what went well, what didn't go so well, who upset me, who didn't upset me, all of those type of things, and have a proper family dinner together, and then bedtime for the kids, and then finishing off work that I need to do or Chris does, and then it's, bed, and then start all over again.
All over again the next day. So that's so brilliantly put, your entire day and the way you manage your kids and your family life. And prioritizing, if at all, there are certain days when you have to work a little more sometimes, or prioritize your kids certain days when they need more attention than work.
I'm very lucky to have an employer who is not constantly watching where I am, what I'm doing. They trust that I do the work, and there are times where I need to put in extra time, then I do it. And it's not a 9 to 5 job, for sure. Whatever needs to be done, job.
This brings us to the end of talking through your entire journey till date. Of course, it's a brief. You've lived it and so kindly shared a lot of points and learnings from your journey. We'll take some time in the next few minutes to reflect on it in a very fun way. Yeah. So my first question would be, if you had to start over again, would you choose the same path?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, the same career.
Yes.
There's a lot of things I do differently from a very young age, and that would be to really work hard on my A levels because that's what let me down into not getting my training contract, getting as much work experience that I could over the holidays and vacation schemes, etc. Really identifying what area of law I want to go into and then focusing on that and doing it. Whereas mine was just, kind of just fell into it. So I'd still want to end up to where I am, I believe, but I think there are still, we all make mistakes and learn from them and always think, oh, if I could do this better, yes, I would. In my mind now, I'd work a lot harder than I did and have
Thanks for sharing that so
less
honestly.
fun in my young years.
We'll take it offline on the fun part for sure. Yeah. What's that one thing you wish someone would have told you when you were 20?
I think it would have been it was I don't know, that's a very, very good question.
You
When I
can
was
take your time.
20, I would say if someone would have told me, "Don't give up." And I know I've said throughout that I've never given up, but again, that reinforcement of it's okay. It's
Someone
okay.
would have pre-warned you.
Exactly. Pre-warned me to, yes, it's possible that you might
Mhm.
get into what you want to do, but it's okay. There's always a possibility or that you can be successful, even if you feel like that day isn't going so great.
Wonderful. What is the most rewarding part of your profession today?
Most rewarding part is, for me, it's constantly learning.
Mhm.
On a daily basis, I'm learning so much new things that I don't know. Even if I've been a lawyer for 20 years, I still don't know everything and I'm learning. I think that is the rewarding part.
Yeah.
And being in a company which is growing, being with nice people definitely makes a difference. The colleagues around you, your support network at work makes a big difference. So, yeah, I find all of that quite rewarding.
Wow. What is the most essential skill that you think is required to succeed in your career?
I don't think there's one skill actually to be a lawyer. I think it's a multiple skills that you need.
Mhm.
Because you can be the cleverest person in the world understand all the laws. If you haven't got that clear communication skills, the skills to socialize with people, to network, to negotiate, to be able to speak up in a meeting, I think it's multiple skills rather than just one skill.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
And,
No, very
it is always building up on those skills that
yeah.
really make a difference.
A very fair point. It's not just one skill,
Yeah.
it's a series of skills. It's a multitude of how deep you are in each skill, which definitely helps through. Now, let's add some speed to our conversation. Yeah, with the rapid fire round, and there are about 8 questions there. So, one book that has influenced you in your career.
I always loved reading, like, criminal lawyers, so John Grisham is one of my favorite authors.
Yeah.
So all the criminal law books definitely did lead me to be a lawyer. So I think I love reading. I don't have one book that's influenced me. I think there's a number of books, and I think if it was a movie, it'd definitely be Erin Brockovich.
Oh, yes. Lovely movie. One of my favorites too. One thing every student or young professional who's listening to you today should know if they want to be a lawyer.
Work hard.
Your career in one word.
Crazy.
That's a good answer, I would say.
Fun crazy, I would
Fun,
say.
crazy, but crazy. One moment in your career you'll never forget.
I think it was the moment I got my qualification,
Yeah.
definitely, which was the start of my career. Throughout, there's been other, awards or recognitions and things like that, but getting the qualification, which made me a solicitor, was the point, I believe.
One quote or mantra you live by.
Never give up.
Okay. Yeah. You've heard it quite a few times,
Yeah.
and that has kept you on.
Kept me going, yeah.
Yeah.
Never give up.
What is the most misunderstood thing about your profession?
Most misunderstood thing about, being a lawyer is everyone thinks that just because you're a lawyer, you know everything about the law.
Okay.
So I get people coming to me asking me about, their property documents. And I was like, I'm not a property lawyer.
Yeah.
So I don't know everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's a misconception that people have is if you're a lawyer and you know the law,
Exactly.
but you
You're
don't. You
you're
go
expert
into
of your
areas.
own subject and areas.
Yeah, exactly. You have to specialize in the areas that you want to go in. The law is so big.
Thank you so much, Trupti. This was very, very insightful to me.
Thank
As a
you.
listener, while I was listening to your story, I was myself so engrossed throughout, and I had so many questions to ask, and I have asked quite a few because
That's
it's
okay.
a very intriguing career, and because I have not been close to many lawyers, it's been very interesting for me to listen to.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure for me. And, maybe we can do a part two with
Yeah,
more questions that you have. Happy to.
of course. Thank you so much for the offer, and have a good day.
You too. Thank you, Lakshmi.
Thank you. And that brings us to the end of this incredibly insightful conversation with Trupti Michael. What a journey she has shared with us. From growing up between Nairobi, India, and UK, to choosing law not through a perfect plan, but through persistence, resilience, and an unwavering belief that she could create her own path. Today, she sits as Group General Counsel, but what stood out wasn't just the title, it was the lessons. Tripti reminded us that law isn't about textbooks or degrees. It's about communication, negotiation, networking, confidence, and learning to speak up when the room feels intimidating. It's also about building skills that go far beyond legal knowledge. Her story also showed us that career paths are rarely linear. She didn't get the training contract she wanted at first, and yet she created opportunities, literally asking for her training contract because she believed her journey didn't have to be traditional to be successful. Tripti, thank you for showing young people and their parents that setbacks don't define you. What you do next does. Your 5 a.m. discipline, your work across global jurisdictions, your honesty about balancing career and motherhood, it all paints a picture of what real perseverance and passion looks like. To everyone listening, if this episode opened your eyes to the real world of law, please share with a young person exploring their future, and don't forget to follow the podcast Unblur the Path on Mummy Kahani Sunao for more stories that help you and your children. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and keep unblurring your path. Thank you.